Welcome to the International War Veteran Podcast, BloodDiamondsandGold.com. Today on the show, Navy veteran and president of SNAP survivors of sexual abuse by priests. We talk about sexual abuse, Hollywood and life from a city that had a wall.
Hello.
Good evening, Mr. Dougherty.
Good evening. How are you?
Oh, I'm grand. Thank you very much to talk to me this evening.
Well, thank you for hosting. Thank you for inviting me.
So, welcome to the show, Mr. Dougherty. Where are you from? You're from Pennsylvania, no?
I was born and raised in a small steelmaking and coal mining town called Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which is about 65 miles east of the city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Is that an area of Amish people?
A mixture. Pennsylvania Dutch, a lot of European settlers, many Yugoslavians, Polish, Irish, German, Dutch, many laborers. My grandmother came from Yugoslavia in 1921 and settled in this area because of the work. There was, because of the steel mills and the coal mines, there was good work for immigrants coming from Europe, and that's how my ancestors arrived in Johnstown.
Okay, and how did you grow up? Were your parents miners or teachers or?
My father worked for 33 years for the Bethlehem Steel Company. My father manufactured and made steel for a living. My mother was for a chunk of my childhood was a homemaker. I'm one of 9 children, so she had her hands full. But when I was in grammar school, she began taking night classes at the university part-time. And after 12 years of doing that, my mother, at the age of 55, graduated from university with a bachelor's degree and then went to work counseling girls through tough periods. When my father retired from the steel mills, my mother then went to work.
Sam, and where did you go to school?
We all grew up Roman Catholic. I went to St. Clement's Church, which was just a block away from my home. And I walked to school every day. And then my secondary school, high school, I started at Bishop McCourt High School, which is, again, a Catholic private school. And then in my junior year of high school, I transferred to a public school and graduated from that school in 1988.
And what made you go to the Army?
The Navy, and not the Army. When I was 21 years old, I had attended, before I was 21, I had attended culinary school. I wanted to be a chef, and I had left culinary school. I was young. I wasn't making a lot of money. My bills and my loans from school were starting to stack up. And the military, my father was in the military. One of my brothers was in the Army. Cousins of mine were in the military. And they were offering an enlistment to where the American military will offer and pay for schooling if you join for the military. So I found that gave me the opportunity to both serve my country while simultaneously paying off my student debt. And that's what I did. And that's why I joined the Navy.
Where were you deployed?
I was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina, on the east coast of the United States. We did do sea patrols and things throughout the region. My ship is still commissioned, and she now is berthed in Guam, her home port. However, I did not serve during active wartime, so I did not serve in any forward theater during active wartime. No.
How is it to be all the day on a ship? What did you do there?
It's work. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of manpower and personnel to operate a ship, to maintain a ship 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Just like any hotel or restaurant or post office, or, I mean, you have to imagine that this is a small city in one area. Anything that you depend on as a citizen, we depend on at sea as well, and it's just located in that area. So it's very much like going to work every day, except it's you're located in one area, and that area goes to sea, and it's a little more structured, and you risk your life. But they are some of the most adventurous and proudest days of my life serving.
What was adventurous if you weren't like in proper deployment? Like,
well, as a 21-year-old young man, every single day, whether you're deployed or not, is an adventure. You know, you're surrounded. I was on the submarine tender. Every day at work, you would look off of our ship and you would see submarines around you. You would see there's personnel, there's activity. You're putting boats in the water. You're getting on boats. You're drilling. It's just, this isn't a cruise ship. You have to be ready to be deployed at any moment. So it's not like you're just laying around sunbathing all day. They are constantly working you. They are constantly preparing you for war. They are preparing you to deploy. They are drilling you. You have to be prepared if your ship catches fire. You have to be prepared to assemble and put it out, because at sea, people aren't coming to save you. You have to save yourselves. So even though you aren't in an active forward theater, you are preparing for that every single day. That ship has to maintain readiness 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So you are constantly keeping that ship equipped, keeping that ship prepared, maintained, keeping the crew ready, maintained, alert, and know what to do, that on a moment's notice, we can set sail and be sent anywhere in the world.
Was your father deployed somewhere?
My father served during Korea. My nephew served during Iraq and went to Iraq. I have many friends and colleagues and shipmates that I served with on my ship that served in Desert Storm on another ship. I know many, many people that have served in war.
And did your father talk a lot about it?
No. I have a cousin that served in Vietnam, and I believe that I've had maybe 2 conversations in my entire life with him about the war. It's just something that he just doesn't talk about. And I believe that he only spoke to me and my brother about it because we were both military veterans as well. But the rest of the family that are not veterans and who have not served, he doesn't share that stuff with.
And did you grow up like watching a lot of war movies and
Sure,
reading books and
sure. I can tell you early in life, it's not like at a young age I set out to join the military and I'm going to go and serve my country. Quite the opposite. When I was a teenager and recruiters would call the house. Oh, you're 15 years old. You're going to be 18 soon. What have you thought about your future? Be like, yeah, it does not involve the military, So, but when you're a few years older, you're on your own, you're paying your own way. You've had a couple of years on your own in your country, and yes, I did grow up watching movies, of course. I still do today. There are series and movies. I like movies and documentaries and things based on factual events. The series, the Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg series, Band of Brothers, The Pacific. I watched a movie the other night called Phantom. It was about a Russian submarine fleet, and like I said, I served on a sub-tender, so it's very familiar to me. So yes, I grew up watching that and still do today.
You see The Boat, the German movie The Boat, about the German submarine.
I have.
Okay. Now, you're head of survivors of SNAP, survivors of abuse of the Catholic Church. How did
this? Yes, I am the president.
Pardon?
Yes, I am the president of the Survivors Network of those abused by priests.
How come? Did you experience sexual abuse by priests as a child?
Yes, at my elementary school, St. Clement's, that I referenced earlier, I was sexually abused from the ages of 10 years old to 13 years old, or around there, maybe a little further. Through fifth grade, through the end of parochial school. Yes, I was sexually assaulted. Me and several of my classmates.
Were you? I heard that some people who experienced sexual abuse as a child only they blend it out and remember it only later. Were you aware or aware all you through your teens about this?
When I was young, I was not. When I was a teenager, after the abuse stopped, and I started to develop sexually myself and began to learn about my body and sex and things, because while it was happening to me, I didn't know anything about sex. I had no idea. So I did realize what had happened to me was wrong. However, I didn't speak about it when I was a teenager, and I realized, and we have data now that suggests that the average age of victim of childhood sexual abuse will come forward and speak out for the first time is 52 years old. Now, I right now am 51 years old. The first time I spoke out, ironically, was in 1991 when I was 21 years old. The only reason that I personally said something when I was 21 years old is because when I joined the military, they make you swear an oath. You swear an oath to enter, and you swear on your life that you will defend the United States Constitution at all costs against all enemies, both foreign and domestic, our own homegrown. I swear an oath to my country on my life that I will defend. And when I was taking that oath, the words really hit home to me. And I felt that I had just made a concrete obligation to say something. And so when I came home from basic training, I told my parents. But at that point, I learned, because of the statutes of limitations in our justice system here in our country, time had already run out by the time I was 18 years old to say anything and to do any charges. And in fact, I learned that if I did speak out and say something publicly, that I could be sued for slander because I was out of the statutes of limitations. So I opened my mouth at 21 years old, and then I closed my mouth at 21 years old, and I did not open it again until I was 42 years old.
Wow. Really slander, being
Yes.
remember and call all your classmates.
I spoke to, not until we didn't speak about it with classmates until I was until I was 42, until 2012. 2011, 2012 is when I first started speaking to other classmates, when I was 42 years old. In 2012, victims of the same abusive priest that I had gone to the bishop here locally and said, this guy abused us when we were children. We brought it up when we were children, and I see that he's still an active priest. So in 2012, after an investigation, the bishop of Altoona Johnstown Diocese found credible evidence that the man who abused me had abused these two other boys, brothers, and removed the priest that abused me from ministry. Then the official district attorney, which is the law, the prosecutor for the area, put an article in our local newspaper about this priest and asked for people with knowledge of his abuse to please come forward and contact her office. That oath that I swore in 1991 to protect and serve still lives within me to this day. And when I saw that the official district attorney asked for information, I felt obligated to come forward and call and talk to her. So one of my former classmates that I had a shared experience with this priest in a shower that we had never spoken about in our lives. I called him in 2012 and we spoke about it, and we both agreed to come back home to Johnstown and give our statements to the police, to which we did. And then our local district attorney turned our cases over to the Pennsylvania State Attorney General's office. And that's how the grand jury investigation that was released worldwide in 2018, that's how that developed.
And how long and what happened then?
The state attorney general began an investigation that lasted a few years, and they found that every single Catholic diocese in the state of Pennsylvania had abused children and covered up the abuse of children. They were able to say that they found cases of 1,000 children over every single diocese within the Commonwealth. So currently, we are attempting to write new legislation for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to better protect children from this ever happening again. Like when I was abused, I only had until I was 18 years old to say something based on the statutes of limitation. Because of the reports and the investigations and the media attention that grand jury investigation have caused, we have successfully completely eliminated the statutes of limitations on sex crimes committed against children in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania now, meaning that our statutes of limitations are the same as murder here in Pennsylvania, meaning if you sexually assault a child in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania today, that child has the rest of their lives to file charges against you. If they are able to prove their case in a court of law, they are able to file criminal charges against an abuser, and there are no longer statutes of limitations. So if it does take a victim until they are 52 years old to come forward, today, when they are 52 years old, if that child today gets abused, further into the future, when they reach 52 years old, if they come to the realization that they want to file charges, they will legally be allowed to in Pennsylvania, unlike me, who was told no.
That's brilliant. How is there something you could tell maybe parents or something to worldwide, or kids, or how did you experience? Did you change yourself, or?
I did. If you, the best advice that I can give parents is that regardless of whether we want to be trusting of people, we've learned that you just can't trust everybody with your children. And I'm not just speaking of clergy. I am the president of a world organization of people that have been abused as children. They were abused by clergy, they were abused by relatives, coaches, teachers, doctors, police officers. This situation is not unique to the church. It is a worldwide pandemic. And people that society deems trustworthy aren't necessarily always trustworthy. And so you have to be cognitive of that fact when it comes to your children. Secondly, if your child's behavior suddenly changes drastically, and you can tell as a parent that there's something different with your child, but your child won't talk to you about it, continue to work on it, because in my experience, there's most likely something, some possible traumatic event. And I'm not just saying sexual abuse, may have happened to your child, and their protective mechanism within themselves at their very young age, with lack of life experience, is telling them to keep that to themselves. So just be there for your kids, be part of your children's lives, be aware of who they associate with, be aware of who their friends' families associate with. I don't mean to be overbearing in any way and let your children enjoy life and being a child. But just I think my parents' generation, our parents' generation, and our grandparents' generation were a little too trusting of people. And I think in today's society, we're finding that, unfortunately, you just can't be too trusting of everybody. You can't just blindly trust.
And I saw a conference of yours. You give annually or conferences, and that are posted on your site online as well. And I saw there are people from Cameroon, from Chile, from England, from Germany, and there were really France, and there were really young people as well. And I found that really crazy. There was a scandal in Germany, Berlin, from the Canisius Kolleg. It's was a Christian school as well, and a boarding school, and they had their molesters, the priests. They did move to Argentina and were happily living after their, what is Snap up to at the moment?
Well, I can tell you it's quite remarkable. I am the new president of Snap. I just assumed this role in the beginning of July. So a newsletter went out that I am the new president of Snap. I can tell you that I have heard from and am in constant communication with victims from Australia, New Zealand, Germany, France, Poland, Ireland, London, Canada, Sendai, Japan, several countries on the continent of Africa, Chile, Paraguay, Argentina, Brazil. It is over 25 countries and counting. What I find remarkable is that when I was a young teen, we didn't have tools like we are using today. You know, as a teenager and as a 51-year-old man, I'm quite happy that I did not have cell phone technology when I was a teenager. I don't need those troubles. I got myself in plenty of trouble without having a cellular phone when I was a teenager. However, this is a remarkable tool that we have at our disposal now. Like, you are currently in Germany and I am currently in the United States, and we are having an open and free discussion about childhood sexual assault. And I am telling you that as the president of the SNAP network, I am in communication with victims from literally around the world who are working together now. For most of my years on this earth, I walked alone, lost, confused, wasn't really sure what happened, wasn't really sure how many people it happened to, wasn't really sure the extent of what was going on in the church, what was going on in my own mind. I suffer from post-traumatic personal injury, and I will suffer from that. I didn't even know from the ages of 10 years old till I was diagnosed in my 30s that that's what I had, but that's what I had. And from 10 years old until in my 30s, when I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety and PTSD, you have to learn what's happening to you. And simultaneously, you're not speaking to people about what is going on with you because you keep that as a private matter. So you're just trying to process all of this. So now, instead of working alone and wandering the earth by ourselves, SNAP brings people together. And we are a support network for one another. You know, at any given time, even though I am the president of SNAP, and you see me able to keep up this conversation, and you may have seen other interviews that I give. I even do live television, and I may be a strong public speaker, and I put on a good interview. But that doesn't mean that this is my personality and my tone 24 hours a day. When the cameras are off and the lights are off, I'm still a victim. I still suffer from all of the anxieties, depression, side effect of being a victim. But now, instead of being by myself in my home, being depressed, being anxious, not wanting to just block everything out and, oh, woe is me, I have now at my disposal at any time zone. If I can't sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, I can get on my phone and I'll be talking to somebody in Australia or New Zealand or China or Japan, or, you know, I will be in contact with someone who has experienced the same kind of trauma that I have, that understands the place that I am currently in, and they can help me out of that because they've been there. They have a complete understanding, and that sharing, that's what my first driving mission as my tenure as SNAP president is to get the word of SNAP and our website, the snapnetwork.org, out to as many victims out there as I humanly possibly can, because I know for a fact there are victims of past child sex abuse that have never heard of the SNAP network and have no earthly idea that there are support networks, regular meeting groups that you can meet in a room with like-minded people that have suffered the same fate that you have, and just talk about it and be able to help each other heal through this process. So SNAP is growing rapidly. Unfortunately, really unfortunately, there is no shortage of victims. There is no shortage of victims. So SNAP is on the move, and we're growing rapidly around the world. And we are determined to accomplish two things: to eliminate and rid the world of childhood sexual assault, and help to support emotionally, mentally, those of us that have suffered through childhood sexual assault, to better live a healthier life.
How do you want to eliminate sexual abuse? Are you in constant process on the Vatican? Because there is this oath of secrecy that the Pope signed in 1962, and which gives the Vatican the right to keep all the files of priests in secret, and the Pope Ratzinger re-signed this in 2001. Are you fighting for opening the archives, or?
I am. And in fact, I was in Rome and I submitted a letter to them requesting my files, requesting the files of my abuser. Pope Francis has publicly stated that he is open to that. However, I have not received any files yet. I can tell you ways that we are combating it are when that document was signed in 1962, and then again when Ratzinger signed it in 2001. In 62, there was no internet. And in 2001, the internet was not what it is today. And social media wasn't even really all the way there yet. So the amount of airtime and people, education, in my opinion, is the silver lining to everything. Education, to educate people generationally about the hazards of childhood sexual abuse through media, such as social media, interviews like this, but also through legislation. Like I told you earlier in this interview that we have completely eliminated the statutes of limitations here in Pennsylvania. I believe that if, when I was a child, sexual abusers had freedoms, all they had to do was maintain that 3 years, that all they had to do was wait 3 years, and after abuse, then they couldn't be charged. So when you're in your mind and you're a sexual abuser and you think, oh, all I have to do is not get caught on this one assault for 3 years, then I'm free. They can't do anything to me for it. Well, today, a sexual abuser is saying, if I get caught, if this person can come back at me for the rest of their life. You know, it's like murder. You know, being able to be charged for murder for the rest of your life is a deterrent into murdering somebody. You know, many people want to commit murder. Many people are raged and fit, but they don't, because sure, there were moral reasons not to, but murder happens. And many people want to commit acts of crime, but don't act on those because they can be held punishable and accountable for the remainder of their years. So I believe that the knowledge that a sexual predator can be held accountable forever is a deterrent. So I'm not saying it's I'm not saying this is easy. It's not easy. There are cultures all around the world that have different viewpoints on sex and on age of consent and marriage, and I understand, but education is very important.
Is this and you open up for family of victims as well?
Yes.
That maybe need support.
Yes, we have many family members of victims. We have many family members that are associated with SNAP that are not victims themselves. However, in a way, you can call them a victim because the effects that their loved one are feeling and suffering, they in a way are feeling those effects as well. So we do have support groups for family members of those that are abused, that just like me as a victim, I have my support group that I can sit in a room with other victims and discuss things with them that they will understand. We have support groups for family members of those abused that they can also share amongst themselves, because that's a traumatic event. You know, if somebody's brother or sister or child or grandchild was sexually assaulted and you weren't aware, and that's a lot to process as a relative. So relatives need to know that they're not alone in this either. So we do have that outlet for family members of those as well.
And did you go to therapy? Did you make a therapy?
As a matter of fact, today is Wednesday, and today is my therapy day. At 8:30 in the morning, every Wednesday, I am in therapy for 45 minutes. I wasn't for the longest time. I didn't really start therapy until I was in my 40s, and it took me a couple therapists to find one that took and that works. Fortunately, my wife, who is a childhood friend of mine, we grew up together, and is a physician, is a doctor, and is very intelligent and very medically trained, and helped me through the process of finding therapists and understanding why I needed a therapist, and encouraging me to visit and stay with therapy. And I have been consistently going to a therapist, and I have a weekly appointment every week at Wednesday at 8:30 in the morning. However, every once in a while, because of a scheduling conflict or something, I have to change or miss an appointment. But for the most part, for the last few years, I've been in a weekly, every week, therapy session.
So you're doing this over years, since years?
Yes.
And it's a talking therapy, or is it a schema therapy, or there's so many kinds of therapies.
There are lots of types of therapy. Mine, I have never really regressed anything in knowledge. Earlier in this interview, like we stated, I was aware as a teenager that what happened to me as a child was wrong. I figured that out, so I didn't really regress and block any of that out. So any of the therapies that, like the tapping and things like, I don't need any of that because they're readily on my mind. Mine are just mine are for clarity. Mine are to just bounce like you would a business partner, like you would it, like, you know, this is what my thought process is. Am I wrong in my thinking here? Or it's really to help me navigate and maintain clarity throughout my life. Help me to continue to keep a healthy balance in my life. Make those, it helps make those anxiety attacks less and less often. So I am aware of, I haven't done any hypnosis. You know, I have had a few relax hypnosis to where you're not necessarily under hypnosis. I'm more in a relaxed state. And that was to help me to learn how to control my breathing and how to use my breathing and my body and my mind to help in times of anxiety, to just kind of bring myself back down a little bit when I get to. So yeah, that's the types of therapy. But I would encourage anyone who honestly, in today's world, whether you're a sexual assault victim or not, today's this pandemic, this COVID, these are traumatizing events, and I don't believe humanity puts enough emphasis on maintaining the proper good mental health. And I believe that in general, a general rule of thumb, I have learned that it's probably better to have a therapist.
It's like cleaning and ordering and so
I'm a chef, right? I once said I went to culinary school. One part of my kitchen work and my military is a term that you will probably be familiar with: mise en place, right? Mise en place. Everything has a place, and every place has a thing. This structure, you know. If this spoon goes here today, it will go there tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. To just help maintain stability, evenness, balance. Because without that, panic sets in. Fear. Where's my spoon? It's supposed to be here. Why isn't it here? Da, 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 and you're spinning. So it's kind of like that. Like, I'm a scuba diver. When you're underwater, it's all about maintaining your breath. The better you balance your breathing, the longer you're going to be allowed to stay. The less air you will use, the more controlled you are, the more comfortable you are, the longer the enjoyment will last. So I think it's important to maintain a balanced mental health.
Is it just for information? Does it have a special name, or is it just talk therapy? Is it advertised?
To tell you the truth, I don't even know. I could probably I will next week. I'll send a message to my therapist and I will ask him exactly, and I will email you back and I will let you know what he says. For me, my wife is the doctor. She is more into those types of things. What is it? What does it do? What does it do? I am more into, I don't really care what it's called. I just want it to help me. Do you know what I mean? So I don't pay as much attention to what type of therapy I'm getting as whether it is helping me or not. And so I'll ask him, he'll let me know, and I'll email you and give you that info.
Did you check out my website?
I did. I was on it earlier today. I found it fascinating and interesting. You have a lot of interesting subject matters.
Yeah, because I interview from every country different army psychologists and therapists, and there's so many opinions and cures for PTSD. So that's a interesting subject by itself.
Yeah.
So, did you learn combat breathing in your army training?
Did I learn
combat breathing?
Sure, we learned combat drilling and combat training. It as a ship, on a ship, it is a little different than as in like an army. You know, you don't march, they don't have us hiking over terrain like they would an army, but you have to maintain alertness on your ship. You have to be ready for battle at any given moment. You have to be ready for fire duty at any given moment. You have to be, so yeah, you're constantly ready, and you're maintaining proper mental health is very important in the military. You know, they're putting people in some sometimes very high pressure situations, very traumatic situations, and trauma affects every person differently. So it's a process that the military takes seriously and provides their members with available therapy.
I did talk to I'm very happy with your army training. Was that hard or traumatic? Or
I think what could have been traumatic for some was not that traumatic for me. I think because being one of 9 children and growing up Roman Catholic and going to Catholic parochial school, that's a very structured life. You know, they have structure, they have rules. So for me to go into the military, it wasn't that different to me. You know, that structure and the rigorous, my family served before me, so I had a good idea of what I was getting myself into already. And I was older than most people usually are when they join. Many people in American military join when they're 18 years old. I joined when I was 21. So yeah, it was easier. It was an easier transformation for me just because of my structured childhood.
Since you live in Pennsylvania, is there cases of the Amish community coming to you?
I haven't had any Amish, but I have had Mennonite, or what we would call plainclothes people, to where it's kind of like even Catholics. The Catholics have the diocesan priests that are under the Roman Catholic clergy. Then you have the Franciscan friars, the Christian Brother friars. You have, you know, the Franciscans, the Jesuits. You know, you have all these different factions of Catholicism, all under the same umbrella, to where it's similar to that.
And how come you started your politician career as well? You must really have a busy life. Did you go into politics because of your big law fight?
Yes, I attempted to go into politics. I was not elected. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to attempt again. I will be at our state capitol in just another week and a half when the legislative body returns. One thing about our country that I'm proud of, and I feel important, that it is necessary to speak truth to power, and to fight for your rights, fight for those that aren't strong enough to fight for themselves, fight against corruption, fight against corporate corruption, fight against, you know, our government was formed for the people, by the people, and governed by the people, not by religion, not by money, not by corporate power, not by lobbyists. And unfortunately, we're all human beings. And there's a lot of money on the table when you're talking about allocating public funding for anything. So just like I felt because of the oath that I swore in the Navy, that sense of duty to speak up, when I first began going to our state capitol and witnessed with my own eyes how poorly our elected representatives represented our people, I felt that same obligation to say, this isn't right. We need better representation. We don't have, the people don't have good representation. The church has excellent representation in our legislation. Corporate America has excellent representation in our Congress. Gun manufacturers have phenomenal representation. Tobacco growers have phenomenal representation. Pharmaceutical manufacturers have phenomenal representation. Average, everyday citizens don't have much representation today at all. So that's why I felt obligated to speak up and speak for those who can't speak for themselves.
You probably saw the movie Spotlight. Is that a good representation of your case?
It is an excellent representation of not just the community of Boston, Massachusetts, but here, my hometown, Boston, Massachusetts, and Johnstown, Pennsylvania. The makeup of the citizenship of those two areas is very similar. European immigrants, blue collar, laborers, workers, loyal, faithful, honest, good-hearted, God-fearing people. So, yeah, the movie Spotlight really hit home with me. I've seen it a number of times.
Did you see the movie Claros? There's a Polish blockbuster, big movie. It just came out 2 years ago. It's called Claros.
I was given the opportunity to screen that movie while I was in Rome 2 years ago.
Wow.
The producers from Poland were in Rome screening that movie, and I got to sit in the audience and watch that documentary movie. Yes.
So that's also a good movie. And
yes.
There's you all obviously Snap is also in Italy.
Yes, we were in Italy.
Did you that might be a funny question, but you probably heard of, I mean, since we're talking about Hollywood, they've been the last few years lots of scandal about child trafficking and Cappy and stuff. Did that help? Did you experience more people coming to you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, a very good friend of mine and fellow board member of SNAP is a Hollywood actor who was abused by a director as an adult, but he's very into. Are you familiar with the Tom Hanks movie called That Thing You Do, about a band from Erie, Pennsylvania called the Wonders? As a band that, if you look up the Tom Hanks movie, That Thing You Do, there is one of the lead actors. His name is Jonathan Sheck. He is in that movie. And as a matter of fact, I was just with Jonathan on Saturday. They were doing a 25-year anniversary special. That movie was released 25 years ago. And it's an excellent movie, by the way, which is funny because I saw it 25 years ago when it was released, and I had no idea. I didn't know Jonathan Sheck at the time, but I was literally with him Saturday, and Jonathan sits on our board of directors, and I am in contact with, I'm doing this podcast with you. I have also sat with Alyssa Milano on her podcast. So I speak and message with Alyssa Milano. Are you familiar with the American movie Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Yeah, I'm a Keanu Reeves.
Alex Winter, who is plays one of the two characters, he is publicly out against child sex abuse. He and I message back and forth quite a bit. Through my friend Jonathan, I have had the privilege and been given quite a big platform to be able, there's a lot of crossover between clergy, sex abuse, and child actors, and the power structure and the enabling and the cover-ups that happen in Hollywood are very similar, parallel to churches and other organizations. You know, Hollywood is not immune to this. So yeah, there's a lot of crossover.
There's been rumors about Tom Hanks in Germany.
That I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. How is? Are you still Catholic?
I guess technically, I am baptized Catholic. I haven't removed my, I haven't officially signed off, but I walked away from the church since I've been 15 years old, which was 1985. The last Catholic mass that I was at was my father's funeral in 2014. And before that, it was another relative's funeral. And after my mother's passing, I know for sure where I am at this stage in my life. My mother's funeral will be the last Catholic church that I ever stepped in.
And Catholic Church. In Germany, I heard in Pennsylvania the masses were in German at one point.
What were? Different. Sure, there are different churches in the 50s and 60s, in the 1950s and the 1960s, and even the 70s. Like I said, this is a very big immigrant town. So we had different sections of town that were prominently Polish and prominently Slovenian or Irish or German or Dutch. So it would only make sense that the community church in, say, the German neighborhoods would be a German born or of German heritage priest and parishioners. So, you know, up until my father's death, even though he didn't really go to church for most of my life, he was raised Catholic. And up until his death, he could still say the responses to Catholic Church in Latin, because he had to know it as a child serving Mass as Latin. Even up to my grandmother's death in 1980, even though she arrived in this country in 1921, her English still, upon her death, she still had, Slovenian was still her first language, and she did not adapt to the English language that well. So sure, there were absolutely all throughout Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, there are a lot of farming communities in Pennsylvania. You know, I'm from a steel making community and coal mining community, but just beyond the steel making community and coal mining community are farms. So you have German farms, you have Dutch farms, you have Amish farms, you have Mennonite farms. So yeah, we're still very multicultural here in Pennsylvania.
And are you happy with the media and how when members of SNAP are giving interviews in the US, is there lots of coverage?
There is a lot of coverage. I prefer live. I prefer full-on interviews to where things are fully said, because producers and networks and news directors and news correspondents all have different agendas or different ideas of what they want their story to be. And of course, as a victim, I have an idea of what I want the story to be. And sometimes in an interview, it might be a very lengthy interview and only a minute or 2 minutes is posted on the actual news coverage. And a few times, basically, media has been tremendous. But a few times I'll watch and be like, oh, that's what, out of everything that was said today, that's what you used. So, but I, as a victim who has been waiting for accountability since I have been 10 years old, will always say that we need more coverage, more interviews, more investigative journalists, more conversations like this, because that's ultimately what's going to change.
Another big problem is that lot of small groups that fight. There's, I think, 3,000 schools alone in Germany, or churches, and every community fights their own little fight. And it's such a long fight just for their community. And at one point, as you saw, what happened in Boston for years, or in Ireland, that they at one point they get something, maybe just a bit money, not maybe so much as you hear in the US. Compensation, and just a bit, and then they're exhausted and don't want to go on. Then they just like say, oh, I don't want to have anything to do this anymore. I just really I'm exhausted. I want to live now my life, or share with my family. And
I completely agree. It is exhausting work. Absolutely exhausting work. And with not enough reward attached to it. And I don't mean monetary reward. You know, there were plenty of reward, when I meet a new victim and we bring somebody in and we can tell we're making a difference in their lives and they feel better. That's incredibly rewarding, to be able to be a shoulder for somebody to lean on is tremendously rewarding. However, those rewards come at a very hefty price. It's exhausting work, because we are outnumbered, we are out-financed. It's exhausting work. And you have to take breaks when it gets to be too much. You have to be able to decompartmentalize everything. You need to be able to pull it out of the compartment when you need it. And you need to also put it back into that compartment when it's too much to take. You need to balance and maintain a healthy mental health, or you will burn out. It's just factual, or you will just burn out.
Something important and serious, but what people don't think so much about is that child abuse can cause health damages through the rest of your life. That
in a wide range, it can cause heart disease, poor dental health. It is linked to, victims of trauma, child sexual assault have a higher percentage chance of dying young, have a higher percentage chance of becoming addicted to drugs and alcohol. And then when you become addicted to drugs and alcohol, then that exposes you to a wider range of health issues that could shorten your life or cause you poor health. So yeah, it's really sad. Over generationally, it's getting better over time. But again, I don't think as the society, we put enough emphasis into proper mental health.
And because we're talking here not just sad like generations from the 60s, and we're talking about right here now, and there's abuse cases of kids that are 3 years old or younger, and yeah. Yeah. Have you been to Berlin?
I have not. One thing that I am certainly looking forward to is being the president of SNAP, as I hope during my tenure as president, that I will have opportunity to, post-pandemic, that is, have the opportunity to travel to our other countries that we have representation in, and explore. I love to travel. I love to go places that I've never been. I want to drive on the Autobahn. I'm an adventurous, I wish that I could drive that fast in this country. But I want to, my brother Mark was stationed in Wiesbaden for a number of years, and a former business partner of mine was stationed in Munich. So I've heard many stories of Berlin, and my brother was actually on duty the night that the Berlin Wall came down, and I heard, this brother is 14 years older than me, and he was on an American Guard unit that night, and he explained on what that was like, and of course I want to travel to Germany and throughout Europe. I'm looking forward to hopefully putting this pandemic to an end soon, so we can get back out on the road again.
Yeah, this year is the reunion of the fall of the wall, and it's just really crazy. I mean, it's
crazy, but think about, the fight and the things that we are trying to work on and change for the future. How many people in Germany, in East Berlin and West Berlin, how many generations of people that never thought that they would ever see that event happen, let alone all the progress that has happened since then? How many people said, give up, you're crazy, that's never gonna happen, never. But it happened. Did it happen overnight? No. Was it a tough slug? Oh, brutal for some people. People lost their lives trying to remove that wall. I mean, it was a tough, tough fight, but it happened. It can happen. It just takes time and determination. Time, determination. It'll happen. That's how change makes. That's how change happens. Yeah. Emails, texts, phone, Zoom, every day. It's remarkable. Since the Pennsylvania grand jury report came out, I have literally had conversations with thousands of people about this. Thousands. I went from 5 years ago to being by myself to now I am the president of the world's largest support network for this. And it's remarkable. I mean, 5 years ago, I was alone on this, just battling through it, just 5 years ago. And in that 5 years' time since coming publicly, I have met thousands of people from around the world just like me. And although a really horrible, tragic thing happened to me decades ago, there is a silver lining. We're not lost now. I mean, this has been a wonderful conversation.
It's a generational problem of my generation, is that I'm not sure that, so that's not a traumatic thing, is that my generation is kids of hippies. So they were just left to do whatever you want. Just go, choose life, and which sometimes can be not so cool looking back, because because you make your own decisions and your freedom, and looking back on it, I would like to actually invent a course for kids that are I don't know, in 6th or 5th grade, where they get taught everything through a year, that you can become a farmer, and then that's what you earn. Then you can become hedge fund manager, or you can become scientist or doctor or cleaner with a great hobby. Because when you look at, I don't know, I think 80% of 18-year-olds who go to university, they don't know what for their job, what job they are going to take.
I agree. I don't, and which is another reason why I didn't really want to bring children into the world, is for society to depend on the generations to follow. You know, like, I'm 51 years old, and 20 years from now, I'm going to be 71 years old. Of course, I want your generation to be gainfully employed. I don't want to work when I'm 71 years old. I want your generation to take care of my generation. So I think we're doing a horrible job of educating our children. We're setting our children up for failure right out of the gate. We're not preparing them to be competitive in the world. We're not comparing them to.
Thank you so much. Stay aggressive. And
thank you so much. You stay aggressive as well. I hopefully, speaking as the president of SNAP, we're not giving them the greatest opportunity at survival, you know, let alone success. Too many children don't even have a chance at survival, let alone success. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah, because parents want you to choose yourself, and then if you a kid, then it's up to the will of somebody else who guides you.
ultimately, secondly, I am the president of SNAP, and it is my responsibility to make sure that you feel welcome and like you have a place and a home in SNAP.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Then talk to you later.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Bye-bye.